Hello, I'm Colin Hendrie. I'm Senior Lecturer in Human and Animal Ethology. I'm interested in animal behaviour, human behaviour. I'm interested in evolution, and this is what this podcast is about. This is the second part of the podcast, and it's to do with how our species came to be how it was. In this slide that you can see is a chimpanzee, you can see there's a gorilla, and there is that classic picture where it shows you the line of the chimpanzee moving up and getting taller and straighter that moves towards the human. And this is the image that most of us have in our mind. This is certainly the image that even at evolution conferences I've seen. It's an image that is actually wrong though, and it leads to thinking that isn't really that tidy for us, because where there seems to be an evolutionary line, the question is, well, where's the missing link? Here we are, here's the chimpanzees, here's the gorillas, here's humans, we're clearly different. Where's the bit that's in between? Where's the missing link? So that's the first thing that it rises. Which leads us on to intelligent design, which gives the idea that there is a deity or some spirit behind the human, and what we are is moving towards an end or a goal. This isn't correct. Anybody who's ever seen a naked male body of a naked middle-aged man will know there's nothing intelligent about the design of the human body at all. Okay, so on this slide, with reference to the idea of a missing link, what it shows you in the top corner is a chimpanzee skull, and all the way down the bottom you can see there is a human skull. And in between are all those ancestral or related species to humans. So with the concept of a missing link, what we have to say is, where would that link be? Where would the middle be? Where would the point be where the chimpanzee stopped being a chimpanzee and the human started being a human? Nobody can say, nobody can agree, religious people can't agree, scientists can't agree, children, adults, women, men can't agree. Nobody can see where this end point, where this join is. So we're looking at a continuous process, not something that stops and starts from one species to the next. This slide shows you the true picture. And in the bottom, it shows you again Darwin's tree, because it's showing you the tree of life. It's showing you the route through which the human species came. And effectively, there was an ancestral species that wasn't a gorilla, wasn't a chimpanzee, wasn't an orangutan. It was something that turned into each of those things. And the reason why those different species emerged is because they found themselves in different environments. Remember, we said that the environment is the thing that produces the change. So the gorilla is like it is because that's how it meets the demands of its environment. The chimpanzee and the bonobos are like they are because that's how they best survive. Humans are like we are because that's how we best get on in our environment. All from the same ancestral stock, but not ancestral to each other. This slide is one I took myself, and I'm actually very proud of it. It shows Maasai tribesmen in Africa, in Tanzania in fact, and it shows you that humans are in fact so different from animals that we do need some sort of adequate explanation for it. The Maasai are surviving in a very difficult environment. Drought and so on is very commonplace. The cows that you can see in the picture behind are so valuable that they don't kill them like we do. What they do is get the protein from the cows by taking the milk and then also taking the blood, and what they do is to make a very sticky mixture, but they keep the cow. That's the important thing. And the guy in the middle that's holding the spear, I've actually got that spear on my front room wall. So what this next series of slides show you are the ancestral species to our own. These are the fossils that have been found in Africa, and what they show you is how the human species changed from rather ape-looking species to obviously the very handsome, beautiful creatures we are today. The skulls that you will be seeing are particularly related to certain features, and what we're really looking at is the teeth and the ridges and also the crests across the top. So these are the things, because they reflect the musculature and also the diet that the creature was finding itself in. This guy, the Australopithecus robustus, as you can see, he's got a huge jaw, and there's a crest on the top of his skull, which is showing you that jaw is powered by massive muscles. This species is extinct because the teeth will show you that a lot of the food it was eating was sandy and being dug up from the ground. If you look at your nails keep on growing. That's the process of digging for food that these ancestors did as well. But they died out because that's just a tough diet, and there's not much that can be gained from it. As we move forward in time, Homo habilis, which is about 1.5 to 2 million years before present. So we're going back a significant amount of time, but not completely to the origin. Homo erectus, which is 1.6 to about 3/4 million years ago. Homo sapien Neanderthal, and then of course our own species as well. The Neanderthals are very interesting because at one time it was thought that they were our ancestors. We actually thought that it was Neanderthals led on to Homo sapiens. Then at another time we thought, well, no, they weren't our ancestors. What they were was a coexisting species. There are places in the world where you can find fossil remains of Neanderthals and of recognisably modern humans together in the same place. So they were clearly in contact with each other, but we didn't think they were related. But very recently, just this year, in fact, we now know that because we've got the Neanderthal genome, we now know that modern humans interbred with the Neanderthals, and each of us has got something like 2% of Neanderthal DNA inside us. So we interbred as well as competed with them as well. This shows you the relationship between the different ancestral or the different coexisting species. To be honest, we're actually still not sure what that relationship is, because it's one of competition, one of eradication, it's one of interbreeding. So that really there is clearly no line that goes from chimpanzee ancestor through to humans, but what there is clearly not just different species that have gone through. These show you the morphological changes. Particularly the point to look out for is that the snout, or the part in front of the face, actually starts to withdraw. It starts to get smaller and smaller and smaller. That's a process that goes on from our primate ancestors all the way through to ourselves, where our faces are actually very, very flat indeed. But one of the points of that as well is as the face flattens, the brain pan gets bigger. Okay, so flattening face, a bigger brain, and clearly the bigger brain is something that's important to us. This shows you why the process is called neoteny. You can see with the young chimpanzee, it's also got a flat face, and the elongation of the lower jaw is something that happens in adulthood. In humans, that process has been suspended, where our face stays very flat and never develops the big jaws that the chimpanzees do. And these are some real skulls, and now I've pointed out the flattened features, you can easily see for yourself how that process is there. The very last skull on the human one has got no teeth. Quite how the very old humans got on with no teeth, I don't know, but clearly they did, because as a species we're very long-lived compared to many other species. As we developed as a species, we went on our travels, and this was very much as the result of the area that we found ourselves in, which was geologically very unstable. East Africa, as we know even today, is a very volcanic place. It's very geologically unstable. It's the home of the Rift Valley, which is caused by a massive crack in the earth all the way from the top of Africa halfway down it. So our species found itself in this very difficult environment that was changing and became sometimes very unhospitable. So what that meant was periodically our species just moved out. It got as far away from this area as it possibly could. So the Australopithecines found themselves going up and down the Rift Valley as far as they could. The Homo erectus got as far as Europe, but it's got to be remembered that Africa is almost an island. There's only a very narrow bridge that connects it to the rest of the world, so it depends on that bridge being open before those species can move along. Homo heidelbergensis moved into Europe as well, but at that time the ice cap was a feature, so they couldn't move beyond that. In the last 100,000 years, there's been an absolute explosion of migration of our species all around the planet, in Australia, into South America, pretty well all over the world, and most interestingly there are, as we speak, humans actually living in outer space. It's not just the planet that we've migrated to. This shows you the land bridge, and the migration can only happen when that land bridge is open, and there is a thing called the Sahara pump, and it depends on the environment, it depends on the weather, and sometimes the land bridge is there, sometimes the land bridge isn't there. So whether humans can migrate or not is very much dependent upon that. And most interestingly, in that area which is now modern day Israel and Syria and Lebanon, this is the area where the Neanderthals and the modern humans of our species were interacting, and you can see caves and you can see artifacts that are within tens of yards of each other, so there was clearly close communication. And this shows you a more colourful version of the previous graph, but it's just to point out that people only got to the very southern tip of places like South America about 15,000 years ago, so this is a very recent migration. And very topically, this graph also shows you that last year an ancestral species of Homo erectus was found that only went extinct about 12 to 15,000 years ago. So as recently as 12, 15,000 years ago, we were not the only human species that were on the planet, and this is worth reminding ourselves of as well. So that brings us to the end of the second part of this podcast, talking about human evolution. And what the discussion point is in this one is that we now know that several human species coexisted at the same time, and in some cases, as I've said, lived in the same locations. The last modern humans died out just 15,000 years ago. How do you think our species would have acted towards these other species, and do we see evidence of that in our modern society, in our modern lives?